All right, everyone, thank you for coming to our talk today. This was supposed to be a panel where we discuss the problems that we face in our organizations and how to deal with them. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's not much of a panel. They all were not able to make it here. So I'm going to invite you guys to be the panelists in this talk. As compensation for your contributions, I have candy. Hopefully that's enough. If you come up and you participate, take a piece of candy. It's also kind of a social experiment. I want to see if people like M&Ms or if they like Skittles more. So you guys are all a bunch of really smart people. You're here at DEF CON, so you probably have some great insight into security. And the more that you contribute here, the better this session is going to be. Otherwise, we're just really going to sit in silence. It's going to be really awkward. So my name is Navaar. I'm an IT administrator at a K-12 school district in upstate New York. I've been working in the education sector for about 15 years now, so I won't claim to know everything. I won't even claim to know how to do things the right way. But what I will say is that I've seen a lot of things over the 15 years that I've worked in education, and I've seen how the landscape has changed over time. So I want to thank the DEF CON education community for letting me be a part of this. It's been a fantastic experience so far. And Ansh, can you introduce yourself in the education community?
Yeah, so I'm Ansh. I'm actually a security professional. I've been doing security consulting for 25 plus years. I've been at DEF CON since DEF CON 6. And so I'm a long time attendee here. We decided this year to try to get educational institutions together in a community to try to talk to one another so that we can share the unique challenges that we all have in the security space. I have a vested interest in education. My wife's an educator. She's been coming to DEF CON since DEF CON 16. And so with that, she participates also in our community, so we get to participate in yours. We love it, and so we hope that you continue to interact with us on our Discord, which there's a link here. I realize the QR code thing is a little scary at DEF CON, and I promise it's not anything bad. If you want some bad ones, I've got some bad ones in my bag. With that, I'll turn it back over to Navaar. I'm going to be sitting up front here with this microphone, and if you want to, when you want to participate, come up and grab it from me. We want to make sure that the questions are heard and recorded, and the interactions are a good part of this talk. So with that, Navaar, take it away.
All right, so the first thing I want to do, fortunately, you guys are kind of split very nicely. So I want to do a red team versus blue team here. And it's really not, you guys aren't going against each other, but it's more of just how would a red team, how would somebody attack a district or an organization, and how would you defend? So let's have this side over here. You guys are going to be our red team, and let's have this side over here. You guys are going to be our blue team. All right. So red team, you guys are attacking a new target, right? You're going to target a K-12 school district. What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish by attacking a school district? Where do you start? What's your target? What are you guys doing? Blue team, what I want you guys to think about when you come up here is you're an IT administrator for a K-12 school district. How do you defend? How do you just secure your organization? And, always assume breach. If anybody has any contributions, anybody wants to participate, come on up.
Okay, main route of attack, I'm going to say is go through your ERP system or through your student system. I'm sorry, am I talking? There we go. Sorry, okay. I'm going to go attack your ERP system. I'm going to come in through backdoors or known vulnerabilities in your PowerSchool. I'm sorry, did I say PowerSchool? Didn't mean to say that. Oops. In your ERP product or your student system, and I'm going to come after you that way, and I'm going to take and expel all your data because that's what really is valuable. Honestly, the rest of your hardware is anyways. So there you go.
Man,
At least, yes, absolutely.
I don't care.
It's fucking DEF CON. At least you didn't say synergy.
Yeah, schools are different. There's we're not major organizations. We're not Google. We're not Microsoft or Amazon or anything. We're a soft target. Our biggest thing isn't going to be our IPs. The most important thing that we have to protect is data.
I'm not usually red team, but I would probably want to get that information and then use it to fish the employees, the teachers and whatnot for their paychecks.
Usually not the good guy. So I would just think of what I would use a school for. School has a lot of infrastructure, has a lot of surface area. I may have no interest in any of your people or anything. I just use you as infrastructure. So there's shitloads of, there's just so many boxes, so much ingress, so much surface area. I would start, at least on the blue team side, doing a infrastructure assessment of what do I actually have, where is my surface area, what is it doing, do I have really, really vulnerable devices, how are they set up? Because I would just, mostly as an adversary, I'd just use a school as where to go in and out, where to store data, where to steal data, but mostly just infrastructure.
Question for the red team side: what kind of data are you after? I mean, I do this for a living, so I'm going to ask leading questions.
So to double down on this conversation here, I can take your EFT statement. I can actually take your direct deposit information, change it to my own, have your payroll supervisor go ahead and submit the payroll as normal, and all that money goes into my 3,000, 4,000 bank accounts. I'm out of the country in 2 seconds. It's all done. That's cash. From a student side, I want to take your student data, because your students don't have a credit report. They don't have a credit history. Some of them don't even exist. They really don't have any history to build up. I can take a student, it's a real social security number, it's a real person. The kid's not even going to know that they exist. No one's going to know they exist for another 16 years or something like that, until they start trying to get a job, and it turns out, oh my gosh, you're a known hacker. And you're like, whoa, what? I didn't do anything, or something along those lines. So there's personal information. There's personal information on on your students. There's personal information in our current political climate. There's personal information on your parents, on your ESL status, on your free and reduced information, things like that. All that stuff is valuable information to a hacker.
You like Skittles, okay.
Hi everyone. Normally I'm not blue teamer. I'm actually on more malicious side, but we're local here. My boss Laura here. We're actually teaching at College of Southern Nevada cybersecurity, and I'm also parent of child who goes to the local school district that being hacked every year, and looks like they're not learning lesson. Last year, my kid came home and he's like, I need to log into my email, and I see he typing something like password 123 to the password. And school emails is like first dot last name at nv.ccsd.edu. I mean, you have to understand, probably teachers also do not practice good passwords. So I'm like, what do you mean like that's your password? He's like, yeah, teacher set up our passwords so she will not forget when we need to sign in into our Chromebooks. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. We're changing your password. He's changing passwords. Next day he comes back and he's like, Mom, why did you make me do this? Teacher made me to reset the password back. I'm like, I need to talk to your teacher. So I went to school. I start talking to the teachers. And I wish I met more openness to idea that it's also their job to protect our students' personal information. Just few teachers who sort of kind of agreed with me, and they said, well, that's just how school policy, that's what we should follow. I'm like, the school policy is shit, and you guys need training. So playing blue teamer I'm going to start with training personal, teachers, principals, students on how to basically internet hygiene, password policies, and so on. Lori, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean that's awesome. At our school district, we start young. We start at around 5th grade or so. We start teaching lessons on password strength, password policies. I'm try and get them to understand the idea of a passphrase rather than a password. Just really strengthening that down so they're not an easy target. When people have password policies and everything is kind of following a pattern, there's incidents where other students will figure out that pattern, and then they'll just start attacking each other, stealing each other's information.
So most, I'm gonna tag onto that, Navaar.
Yep.
Most students now have pretty powerful gaming machines, right? Because they're all into gaming. I've got a machine at home with 2 NVIDIA 5090s in it. It will brute force the entire 8-character NTLM space in 2 hours. So, yeah, your students have password crackers at home. Think about that as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Velasquez Ismail. Actually, I do higher ed, so not K through 12. But I can imagine, as someone who is doing blue team, if I was on the red team, if I was tackling something at K through 12, I would try to deploy stuff and see what I can get away with at the K through 12 level. Assuming at the K through 12 level, we've seen less security capabilities. I know that you mentioned that. The security at K through 12 is quite frankly not that great. So if I'm trying to practice something, deploying malware, deploying any type of ransomware, if I can get away with it at the K through 12 level, then potentially there's a way or an avenue where I can practice it at a higher level, whether it's at a .gov or even a higher education where you could exfiltrate actual research and whatnot. Thank you.
All right, skills are winning so far. All right, does anybody else have anything else, or we can move on from here? All right, let's move on. All right, so students are the insider threat, right? I'm not worried about the nation-state actors. I'm more concerned about the middle schooler who has too much time on their hands, has access to YouTube, Reddit, ChatGPT, and is probably pissed off because I blocked them from Roblox. Yeah. So my question for you guys is, what are you seeing in your organizations? Not necessarily K through 12. This can also be higher ed. This can also be, just other organizations outside of the education space. What do you guys see? How are people getting around your security that you have in place? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we have set up basically pretty strict filtering process. We've got really great filtering software, microsegmentation, things like that. What our students are doing are actually using demo sites that allow you to execute arbitrary JavaScript in like W3 schools, for example. W3 schools is a wonderful place for kids to learn. It's also a great place for them to execute arbitrary JavaScript code using the, I think it's the RRC, the RRE, whatever it was we were using before. So we've got some problems where we're balancing. We need to give you the ability to have education and the ability, we have to pull away those places where you're not, so you don't actually have the ability to run your own arbitrary software, including Roblox. So.
I've got a SOX proxy written entirely in JavaScript.
Okay, so I work with a nonprofit organization where we do cybersecurity boot camps. and we work in a warfare range, luckily, where the whole point is to hack and break everything in the network. So what security do we have in place other than just have our own network separated from the school that we work with? We don't have any. So how do we deal with a student having fun and breaking stuff as they're supposed to be doing because they're supposed to be having fun? Hey, you broke it, now fix it. Get us back on track, okay? We need to get through this lesson. Congratulations, you were able to break it, but now the hard part is getting it working again. So I like to give them a challenge after they've successfully messed with their peers' stuff or successfully took down the computers, the teacher's computer and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. There you go again. Come on up.
Yeah.
So I work in an institution where we don't have that many students, but we have a lot of researchers and staff. And the biggest thing that happens to us is MFA fatigue. So we use Duo. Unfortunately, when an account gets phished, they see a Duo push and they see multiple, and sometimes someone slips and they let that person in. So the biggest thing that we're always dealing with now is the threat of a business email compromise. So I even share folks like, you have to have a higher level of scrutiny. Even when you're receiving a .edu email, folks are so ready to answer that email, irregardless of who the sender is. Unfortunately, in higher ed, we can't block the emails for coming in. The researchers want to get the research. There's an exchange and flow of information that is out there. So it really is at the human level. Let's not get phished, but even then, having that second chance to not let that that threat actor come in because you accidentally hit that Duo push and approved it.
Yeah, in the K-12 space, we put everybody in a walled garden. We don't let emails come in from the external for our elementary schools and the middle schoolers. Our high schoolers have a little bit more access, but the lower levels, we don't let anybody talk to them. We don't let them talk to the outside world. So we're locking everything down. We're blocking a whole lot of stuff. We're filtering the internet. But personally, I hate how much we are filtering. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, here's just to jump on this real quick. Email for your students. So one of the things that you can do with your student system, sometimes you have student systems that actually have a prize. Your kids, all your kids have their own email address, right? But don't ever share that out to anybody else through your API calls to your other vendors, because that opens up the door for that second party or third party person to have the email, the actual personal email of your student. So any email that we have that we push out for any student is always their district registered email. That's the only email they get. It's the only email we publish in anywhere. That goes through our filters, same thing, and blocks those kind of incoming access. If you open that up to allowing your students, then you're counting on the parents or their provider to provide you with security, which is unlikely to work. Okay, that was it.
Well, since we started talking about students actually who using their skills for malicious purposes, in college, I actually started all my cybersecurity classes from telling them real story and even offering them to introduce to my friend who served some time here in jail after high school for hacking. And after hearing some of his stories, how comfortable and how our prison here system works, I think it's discouraged them. So if you introduce them to what they can get into, I think that will prevent at least half of the students from even entertain the idea of hacking into something they shouldn't.
All right, so we probably all have a bunch of agents and extensions on our devices, all trying to protect and trying to secure. How do we deal with the students that are trying to get around those agents, trying to get around those those extensions? I've dealt with a whole bunch of web proxies popping up all over the place where it just completely bypasses all of the agents.
So I'm at a well-resourced private school. My students have access to a lot of really nice hardware and expertise at this point. So the important point here is that I've had students write their own proxies, VPNs, etc. Most recently, I had a student accidentally, he was just like, I just kind of wanted to see if I could get around a Google feature we had that was locking it down for Google Docs, so that even when it was in a lockdown mode, he can, utilizing we are a bring your own device campus, by the way, so they are entirely walled off from the actual school's network. There's no installation rights or anything. We really don't have computer labs anymore. But he actually, on his laptop, was like, oh, well, I'll just use this underlying Mac framework for accessibility. And now there's a buffer in the Mac that, keeps what you've been typing. Or if you're smart about it, like he was like, oh, well, how about I just use a key command from accessibility to then trigger it to send a pre-formatted Gemini API call with what's been in the buffer as a formatted prompt, and take the response from Gemini and shove it in the buffer, and then I can keep typing on the keyboard, and no matter what I'm typing, it's pulling the letters out of the forward keyboard buffer. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. You just finished your math final. You're going to come spend some time with me. And I set up some lockdown browser tests and some College Board lockdown tests, and it both got past both of those. And so I'm actually an AP reader as well. So at this summer, I was in deep conversations with the head of AP Math, Cyber, and Comp Sci. So hopefully we'll get that fixed. But like that's what you see your students doing on the higher level, is they're going to do this stuff, but not maliciously. Like, they're just having fun. And as long as you have an open relationship with them, they're going to show you these things, and then hopefully you can stop them from walking into like I just got into a jail time sentence before it happens, right? So like the open communication, the trust, it's really important. That's kind of what I get at.
And we also have to maintain compliance as well. We have all these organizations and the government and everything trying to make sure that we have to be locked down, that we have to be secure. And then you've got other things like College Board. If we're out there being a testing site for like Pearson or College Board, and we have to meet all of those rules in order to maintain our status as a testing site. All right, let's move on. Let's go to a different topic here. Let's talk about IoT and shadow IT. All these devices are out there now. We got interactive panels, cameras, drones, bring your own device stuff, the random Temu garbage that all of your teachers are buying and bringing in, or your students are buying and bringing into the school. How do we secure our networks when all of this random shit is just out there?
My wife's lights have been hacked like 6 times in the last 4 years. Drives her crazy. But yeah, they're designed to fail.
Yeah, same deal as before. Just microsegmentation. Try to get your IoT devices off of your standard network. Try to get them out of a place where you're going to be anywhere where they're going to have accessibility except through the correct channels. One of the other things you can do, and this is kind of a tangent slightly, is actually set up rules for what you can purchase and bring into your classroom for your teachers, so your teachers aren't bringing in insecure devices. You're not going to be able to stop the kids from bringing insecure devices because that's just a different thing, but that's fine. That's the kid's personal device. But you don't want to do is have a teacher in a classroom who's brought in this personal device that they thought this is great. They plug it into the wall. First off, don't let your wall jacks be active unless they actually have a device that you own plugged into it. That's the other thing. But also don't let your teachers buy things and bring them into the office. Have penalties in place to restrict that activity, or have a purchasing policy in place that your teachers are not allowed to be reimbursed. That stops a lot of it because they aren't going to do it out of their own pocket because they're not paid well enough. 2, then don't give them an opportunity to actually install this stuff in your classroom. So anyway, that was a tangent, but that's microsegmentation. Yay, team.
All right, so I have a fun story, right? A student, an enterprising student, decided that he was going to bring in a hotspot, and he was going to start charging his other students, his fellow peers and stuff, for open internet access that is off of the district network. Yeah. How do I stop crap like that from happening? I want a cut of it. Yeah. Right. So I mean, we can. We've entertained the idea of using things like geo blocking. So you can't log on to a network during certain hours unless it's here. But then it comes up. What about students that are having to do work from home or work from somewhere else? We walk that fine line between supporting the primary mission of an educational institution, which is to teach and to learn, and at the same time trying to secure all of our systems and all of the data that's going on. It's always it's a real challenge out there. Anybody else? All right, moving on. All right, so there's free apps, right? Everything out there is now free apps everywhere. And all of these free apps are all trying to get you to sign in Google SSO or Microsoft SSO, or even just use your email address to sign in. What does the vetting process look like, and how can we ensure data compliance for all of these applications and stuff that are out there? I know in California, California has COPIPA. It's one of their laws. New York State has New York State Ed Law 2D. I know a bunch of other states have different compliance laws. But then, school districts, we also have FERPA, SIPA, COPA, HIPAA, tons of different PAs all out there. Any insight, anybody?
All right, doubling down
Yeah.
on my tangent, which is the purchasing process and the vetting process for your software. Have a process in place at your district. If you aren't already covered, if you're not in California, you're not in New York, have a process in your district which vets your software, anything that's going to run on a computer, and that includes iTunes, that includes, I can't remember one of the messaging apps that we used to have. You have to have a vetting process. Then you also have a way of enforcing the process so that you don't have people getting around your stuff. So it's a big set of infrastructure. If you're familiar with the COSIN organization, which I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, they have a good guideline for you. They're a national organization for school network professionals. It's a great organization, and it has a good guideline for you to set up these purchasing processes as well as these vetting processes. Okay, that's it. Commercial over.
So, Navaar, I'm gonna jump on this real fast because you guys hate people like me. My wife, when she teaches and she has a problem, she doesn't call IT. She calls me. And because I'm gonna respond in real time versus you having to open a ticket and wait for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 6 months for something to happen. And oftentimes I'm bypassing security controls to get her working, so she can teach her students. And it's tough, and I understand that IT staffs in organizations are small. She shared her school of 1,700 students shares one IT person with the other school of 1,600 students. So, I mean, it's hard. It's difficult, but you also have to enable some form of self-service, right? And that's the challenge. Yeah. Staff out appropriately or provide self-service, but so. You're talking about shadow IT.
Yeah.
I am shadow IT.
Yeah.
I'll down to the point where I'm stealing certificates from devices in order to get other devices online because she can't get her device online, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be Big Brother at the school district. That is not my job, as IT inside of a school district. I'm there to ultimately to support the teachers and their ability to, educate the students. But I do have a role where I have to maintain, compliance for all of these laws. Otherwise, the district gets in trouble. So, teachers will go to conferences, their education conferences all the time. They'll learn about all these great new apps. They'll bring them back and they'll say, how do I get this on? And sometimes, the answer has to be no. And then I get the teacher sitting there complaining at the same time saying, you know, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. Let me teach my students. Let me, you know, you have to trust me as a teacher to know what's right for the students. It's a fine line that we have to walk, and it's really hard sometimes to say, yeah, sorry, tough shit. You know, this is not a great application, or it doesn't meet, you know, security policies, or this is 100% absolutely stealing your data and sending it to China or something.
Apologize, I'm rather new in the education system. It's like 4 months, so this is a fun experience. Oh, talked in there. Yep. Apologize. New into education, first 4 months. I'm actually not on the security side. I'm more on the infrastructure and application side. So we do have a rather extensive process that I'm not totally aware of because not in the cyber side. But one thing that we do is have the teachers do their own initial investigations into the applications that they're requesting. Not so much like, oh, I like these features of it, but can you actually explain a bit more and like what goes on, especially if it's requiring stuff that requires single sign-on. We need to know, like, are you just going to get taken out from that? And then the applications then inevitably come to me. I start looking at them as well, doing my own research into behind it. And then that's kind of how we start to trickle down some of the requests, because it can be rather extensive in what people want and what they think they're going to need and what professors find to be sparkling, especially students. They say, oh, I don't know, what's an easy, like Anaconda, like obviously it's well known, but suddenly they find something like that and they're like, oh, I need this. How do we get about it? And so we do require a lot of hands-on, and that kind of takes away from it, because then if they have to do their own research, they're less inclined to want it.
All right, so here's a big one: physical security. Our buildings in education spaces, higher ed, I've seen it. I've toured some, you know, colleges and stuff. K-12, I've been to a lot of different, you know, school districts. Our buildings are open by design, right? They're open for students to be able to come in. There's a lot of schools that I've seen where, you know, you can just walk around the building. They even have walking hours on weekends. You know, classrooms are frequently left unlocked. We don't always have full control over our infrastructure security. You know, you could leave a USB drive on the floor, and I guarantee you some student or some faculty or staff is going to pick it up and try and plug it into their device. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. So what are the most overlooked physical security threats in a school environment? Yeah, I know. I put a bunch of the answers up there.
I'm a parent of multiple students in Maryland, and I'd have to say the elementary, high school, and middle schools are actually pretty well locked down. I mean, just trying to get in there to see your kid is actually pretty hard. However, driving around the back of the school, and the janitors, the service department doors are like freaking wide open or propped open by something. You try to go in through the front door, and it is like, you know, Fort Knox. You just drive around the back door, and yeah, I've seen them open a couple times. Now, I don't know what the physical security is past that, because I'm not trying to break into the school, but that would be the first thing. I also volunteer at a college a lot up in Vermont. Been working on the volunteer side for years, and there's almost nothing you can do to physically secure some of these old New England schools that were never built in the concept of physical security. So, I mean, you'd have to completely retool some of these colleges from top to bottom. And they've got multiple different students walking in all the time. I mean, how would you? They're not on a regulated schedule like elementary, middle school, and high school.
I'm fortunate enough that I live in a kind of a very sparsely populated state, South Dakota, and one of my jobs is I do risk assessments at the schools, which is really an awesome job. I love it. Can everybody hear me? Some of these risk assessments, I'll actually just walk around the school just to see if I can get let in. There's been times where I've had teachers know that there's a locked door, but they'll actually meet me at the door with seeing me walk by the window and just let me in. Say, you know where you're going? Yeah, I know where I'm going. No problem. And they'll just leave me. It's pretty interesting. So with the risk assessments, I do get to bring up that, and hopefully it goes places, but it's hard to say. So I think the human element, at least in my area of the country, is that, you know, we're just all people friendly. It's you know, nobody's there to do you any harm. So that's what one of my stories is, that, you know, it's the people.
And do we think that policies like, you know, blocking USB ports is effective? Does it just hinder the education? I know I've thrown that idea around, and I have multiple different programs in the district that are trying to do something with USB devices, whether it's, you know, various you know, probes, temperature sensors, that kind of stuff, or you know, the photo lab, that it's easier for them to store and transfer photos on a USB device.
Part of that, to solve that problem in particular, you have to have a good hardware inventory, and you have to have a good network inventory. Know which ports you have, be able to identify which ports you have, know what hardware you have, what hardware is authorized to have ports open in which labs, in which places, at which times. It's hard. And that just comes back to like staffing. You have to staff out I mean, not that anybody here is in charge of your school district, but you have to be able to be staffed out. You know, you've got to be able to be staffed out in a way that you can adequately provide level of coverage for providing microsegmentation, or for providing an inventory of your ports, an inventory of your Ethernet in your USB, and an inventory of your items, so that you can then have management software that can actually manage all that stuff for you, and have somebody who can monitor that, which is also very challenging. So anyway.
To kind of add on to that, I don't really think that like policies like block all USBs, at least in my district, it would never happen. It would never work. But I think that, as you're saying, having an understanding of what's going on behind the scenes and kind of just applying that to making sure that the ones that are necessary are the most secure. If you can block it at certain areas, labs if necessary, whatever it might be, you kind of make it a bit more secure in the overall kind of scheme thing, while also still appealing to the academic side, the professors, the students, and all that.
Has anybody had the teachers union come after them? It's a real problem. I try and stay on their good side.
That's a good idea.
Not trying to air all our dirty laundry, but, you know, the IDFs in the janitor closets, right? That one scares me. There's IDFs that are sitting in closets with slop sinks, and all that water near all of that expensive equipment is a terrifying thought. I had a friend who had that problem, and they fried an entire IDF. It just becomes a thing, like how do we lock down our spaces? It's hard sometimes when, you know, there's very limited space in some of these old buildings, and, you know, you have to maintain your infrastructure. You have to put, you know, switches and stuff somewhere. So how can we? I mean, that's just kind of an open-ended question. I don't really know if there's an answer for it to secure that and protect it.
Navaar, do you have problems with flipper zeros at your school?
Not that I know of at this time. Fortunately, I have not ran across any. If I find them, then I get new toys.
My wife's school recently was remodeled, and we are talking about physical security. They added all these card readers to, everything. Like card reader. You get in the staff door, card reader. You get in your, IDF card reader. Get into the front of the school, card reader, right? And I'm like, okay, so every once in a while I need to get into the school, and I don't always have my wife's badge, so what am I going to do? Look at it, and it's a HIDI class, I'm like, cool, at least they're using something secure. No, they're using the default keys. So cloned it, use a default key. Luckily, the principal knows me real well, so I can just kind of walk in and wave. He doesn't care, but yeah. So I would say, especially with your IDFs and stuff, Flipper could be a real problem if you're just using base security on your door systems.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the phishing, the constant threat of phishing. As IT and security professionals or hackers, if you're out here, we innately just don't trust anything. But the faculty and staff, they're generally a lot more trusting. They're more concerned about getting their jobs done. They're not really going to scrutinize any emails that are coming in. We've talked about it earlier. We can look at some things and be like, yeah, that's an obvious phishing attempt, but some teacher's just going to click on it because it's coming from the superintendent, right? Even though it's not actually coming from a superintendent. And then we also have the problem of AI in recent years, that explosion of AI, where now those phishing attempts don't have the really obvious spelling mistakes. They look legit. It's a lot easier for them to fake. Is security awareness training enough for the faculty and the staff and the teachers? What do we do when people consistently fail that security awareness training? How do we deal with those kind of situations? They're always... I did a security awareness campaign last year with my boss, and we took a voice sample from a YouTube video of our superintendent, and we made a voice clone off of that voice sample. I got permission first. And then I played it back to the faculty and staff in an email, and I said, all right, here's a real copy, and here's the fake one. Or actually, I just said, here's two copies. Which one's real, which one's fake? Probably about 30-something% of the people got it wrong. They picked AI. If it's that easy to make voice clones of people and to, just fool people, what chance do we have? What do we do? How do we save our people from themselves? Yeah.
I got free candy. I got free candy
We
up
got
here.
candy up here.
If anybody wants it, just click on this link.
I already took my candy. Security awareness training hasn't been enough, at least where we're at. I know that we had a 2-year period where our faculty was on work to rule, so they wouldn't even attend any of the security trainings, much less do anything about it. But our rest of our administrators are not following their own policies with regards to, we're sending out emails that are legit emails to go to this website of this cloud service that we got and type in your credentials. So we are undermining our own security training by having little pockets of siloed administrators buying services and then building up whatever they need to build up.
So actually, I have a follow-up question on that. You said work to rule, which, dealing with the teachers union, and my wife is a member of the teachers union, so we strike when we strike, and I support her when she does, and I also support her work to rule. How do you guys ever negotiate with the union to add that kind of training into their contract so that it's a part of their work to rule, right? Yeah, that it's something that I've often talked about to the IT staff at her district, but it's not done with her either. They get PD days, right? But it's not a part of their PD, right? Yeah.
Just adding a little bit on that is just to be less adversarial and more, less adversarial with your teachers union. The more you engage your teachers union, if you're, certain states are stronger than others. Texas, you may not have a very strong teachers union, but others do. So be respectful, engage them. They are actually looking for what's best for students, and it's important for them to understand that what's best for students may not be what's best for them. So if you can help them to understand that, that's just so much more valuable in the long run.
I'll say that the vast majority of teachers out there really are, they follow that same line of thinking, but I have heard of some that are that go against it. You know, it's security isn't something that they have to be concerned about. That's something that, you know, the IT staff has to be concerned about. So they are almost working against IT sometimes. It's, you know, you just kind of got to engage. You kind of got to talk to people. I think we've said it a couple times already. You have to be nice and try and work with them. Show them that, you know, there is a real threat, and having everybody on board. This is a team-based activity here. Like, we can't secure the network without everybody being on the same page. All right, student communities, for students, by students. One of my, I guess, proudest achievements was setting up the student help desk at my school district. It's been running for almost as long as I've been at the district. But I've also helped set up the eSports club, been adjacently part to the coding club, the networking club, helped set up, you know, other clubs that aren't even technology related, like, you know, ski club and stuff like that. It's about, you know, mentoring that next generation. I guess I don't really have a question here, but if anybody wants to speak on, you know, stuff that they've done in their districts, I will just say that the best thing I could say is be the spark or be the fuel. You know, find students that either want to do something and help them, kind of push them through it, help guide them, help mentor them, help them connect to the right people.
I actually did have a question. I'm currently at Purdue University, and I wanted to start a DEF CON group there because the nearest group is in Indianapolis, and a lot of the students don't have cars, so it's unrealistic for us to get to Indianapolis. Where do I start?
I actually have an answer to that. Just start. Don't even call it a DEF CON group. Just start. Start getting together. Be a community. That's what we did here. We formalized it a little bit, but we just decided to start. And so yeah, just start. I also wanted to add on to Navaar's thing. One of the things my company does, we do security assessments for school districts. So we come in and we actually do red team exercises and security assessments for some pretty big districts. But one of the recommendations we always give on the student side is start a club. You know, get in front of the problem, right? You know, you got kids that are interested in doing hacking shit. Well, feed that interest in a healthy way. I do career days oftentimes at my wife's school, as they're very popular. I have a room full of kids that want to be hackers, and they always ask me, how do I get into the work? I'm like, don't go to jail. You know, that's my number one rule, right? Don't have a record, don't go to jail. You know, that always catches them off guard. Like don't do crazy shit. But yeah, Navaar, you are the first place that I've heard that has a student help desk, and that's amazing. And it's an amazing way to get in front of and provide interventions for the kids that are really interested in technology. This is recorded, by the way. You'll be able to get it.
I'm getting paid to come up here. So actually, this is one of the things that I love about my workplace over at Stanford. We've been having a summer internship program for every department, but we had one recently for our IT program. So I got to mentor a recent college grad who had some networking experience, but I taught her how to do OSINT reports, which is very rewarding because we did it for a lot of our VIP faculty folks. I've given talks. I gave a recent talk at CSU East Bay to a lot of students who are doing computer science. I think the one thing I try to show people is that not everyone gets into cybersecurity through like learning how to code or through networking. I was actually in facilities for the first 7 years of my career. So I started out cleaning people's desks and folding tables for events. And I like to show folks that there's a pathway to get into security where it might not be the most conventional, but there are ways to get in. And also getting equipment. Sometimes if you finally are done with that really old Cisco switch, what I did was I ended up raffling it to students who they can play with it and learn how to set up VLANs for themselves. So I think it starts with really just empowering a lot of the students now. I'm sure it can be done at the K through 12 level. Kids are very interested at learning this type of technology, and I think overall it's just giving these students hope, because I know with, at least for us at Stanford, there's like 363 layoffs, and just to give hope that the jobs will appear again, the jobs are going to come through, you'll get paid nicely, and what you're doing is important, whether you're securing the government stuff in the future jobs or for your own educational institution. So I think this is something that I'm very proud of and to talk about.
I volunteer at a college up in Vermont, Norwich University. It's probably close to yours, your school. And so one thing they did about 10 years ago when I was helping to advise them is they set up they called the Cyber Ranger Battalion. It's a private military school, right? And that eventually evolved into a student hacking crew called Unit 1819. And basically the students have been self-teaching each other with mentors from in and out to just, and I said the same thing, just get started. Just get an old couple of computers, an old server, put it together, download Kali, begin. Just start experimenting. That has worked out very well. Like, I think a clear half of the cybersecurity team, or not team, the students are part of this club. And they try, and they're trying to learn. I'd like to get more formal, but even that is good enough. I tell them, because I work in the industry, it's like, nobody cares where you went to school. I don't even look. If I have to see that you had a degree, great. Nobody cares. They just care what can you do and what are your skills. And most of those skills are really honed at home or with friends or practicing. So when I advise students, I say, yes, go take your courses, go get your degree, that's great. But what can you do? What have you been practicing? What have you been experimenting with? That's way more important to us in our job interviews than, okay, I went to name college. I'm like, that's great, awesome.
I'm torn. I love the idea of having a hacking club at the school, but I don't want any kids with Kali on my network.
That's why the network is separate.
Oh, come on, Navaar, live a little.
Similar to Navaar, we do have a student help desk, which has been very helpful. It gives students the opportunity to come in, learn, add on to the internships and whatnot. So it's been a blessing to watch as it unfolds. Again, rather recent here, but it is also rather recent into our development. I'm currently in the process of revitalizing our eSports / gaming lab. It's kind of a mixture of both, which is a headache in itself. We have a loss of historic data. It's been misran. We have a UREC over at Seattle U, and they tend to be more on the physical, the gym, all that kind of side. They don't really pay as much attention as the esports. You have to walk across the campus. It's kind of a hassle. And to answer to yours, I know at least at my university over at Seattle U, if you have ideas for clubs like that, UREC is very approachable in those regards. So just finding someone who has some sway or something of that nature, or just reaching out, I think that's big. Student-on-student communication is massive. You can start saying, hey, we're into this. Let's start doing this. Let's start meeting here. Something that's accessible, walkable distance. I know at least on our campus we have quite a bit of room for doing that. Yeah, and just with regards to the esports, I mean, that has been for me one of my bigger headaches, because how do we keep it secure? We can segregate it from the network. We can do all those things, but constant update of applications, what level of access do we give? Prior to me, we were just giving students administrator access. That's been cooking machines that we're spending $3,000 to $4,000 on. It's been a headache in itself, but we're learning and living, and that's really all we can ask for ourselves.
All right, so the last thing I'll say on this is just be out there, help your students build something that they want to build. Just be a resource for them, be a mentor for them, help them, guide them through that process, because a lot of them want to start things, they want to do things, they just might not know how. So if somebody approaches you or something, just go for it. And encourage them to just start it, and then just kind of help them through. All right, I want to thank you guys very much for being out here. You guys have been fantastic panelists answering some of these questions, and really, if anything else, just, these are just questions to just kind of think about and keep in the back of your own minds. So thank you.